Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we have the task of matching this vivid blue vinyl in order to paint some plastic pieces to match. Because this is not a color we'll match every day, this could be a bit of a challenge, so let's do it. But before we get started, I want to express some appreciation to a viewer who suggested that we could put glue on these Dodge door panels to adhere the vinyl and foam to the plastic panel. I think that's a great idea. So I could imagine using some spray contact cement, and then when that's about dry, then do the stretching. Before we attach it to the door, though, we need to make sure we have enough vinyl to wrap around the top edge in order to staple it. So as long as we can do all that at once, that would be nice. I might look like an octopus hanging wallpaper, but great idea, and thank you. And I did forget to include this shot of the exterior where you can see the one layer of epoxy did a pretty decent job of hiding any telltale signs of stapling around the top of that door. And I'd also like to answer the question I get asked most of the time, and I'm not going to reply to the emails. I'm going to do it here once and for all. Why don't you have any products listed for the do-it-yourselfer? The information is always in the description box for each video, but just to audibilize it here, this is not a DIY channel. There are many outlets for buying products for the do-it-yourselfer, and there are people that show you how to use those products. The repairs on this channel go way beyond that scope. So the repairs on this channel would be the ones that a technician would offer for the more discerning customer. Still, the public is made aware of what kinds of repairs are actually available. Right away in each video, the thumbnail shows the kind of damage, for example, the dog damage in a couch. And if the customer would like that kind of damage repaired, then he can get in touch with a technician and ask him or her, can you do something similar to that with my couch? So my involvement in the business has always been to assist my fellow technicians. Mobile techs already have a supplier. And so this channel focuses mainly on principles and methods for repair. We try not to tell the craftsman exactly what product he has to use. For example, he might have a half dozen air-dry leather fillers. Well, we dignify the craftsman by allowing him to make the choice of which filler for his particular repair he's going to use. And what if a product is discontinued or a supplier goes out of business? The technician still has the basic principles to work with. So in this way, all suppliers everywhere are supported. However, I have no indication whether that's even appreciated. So I hope that helps in your understanding as to why this channel is not a DIY channel. There is much work to be done still with the repair industry itself. We see repairs even in 2021 that don't even rise up to the level of expectancy as we had 30 years ago. The vast majority of technicians out there are still using the same old techniques and old products from days gone by, and they haven't what I call crossed the threshold into better repairs. Now, it might seem like a giant leap of faith to retool, to change a line of products, and to learn new methods, but this channel is intended to walk you through that and make the transition easy. Our friend Gary, whom you know from this channel, asked me to share with you that many years ago he was having trouble getting that factory finish on the leather seats using solvent paints. Then when he switched to water-based paints, it was like night and day. So he crossed the threshold. Then he had a family member come work with him for a bit. They were accustomed to using solvents too, and after 2 days, he said, I'm not turning back. I'm using water-based. And crossing that threshold will make us feel so much better about our repairs. This was left at one dealership, but how can you go home happy about your day's work? There's even an imprint of the chill bar in the vinyl. And here is evidence of another technician that could have benefited from the channel. It's better to cross the threshold and feel good about your work. You will have better, more stable customers and a more diverse customer base with greater opportunities. There. Doesn't that make you feel better? We crossed the threshold. And now for our vivid blue. We have spoken at some length on other videos about matching colors that were either in the tan or the gray family. But one thing we haven't discussed is mixing a vivid blue such as in this piece of vinyl. And our goal then is to have these plastic pieces match the vinyl in the seats. So for these kinds of intense colors, we start then with our pure pigment in its pure intensity. I am using number 120 blue. This is pure pigment, so what you see is what you get, so now let's compare. We've highlighted in previous videos that you cannot compare color until the value is close. And since the value of our blue is way too dark, we need to then first lighten the value. And so you're probably thinking, add white, and you are correct. How much white we don't know, so let's be careful the first time. And we're still dark, but we have a feel for how things are going. I feel like if I went about halfway the first time, I should be able to add the same amount of white the second time and be there. And indeed, we're very close at this point. When I'm this close with the pigment, I like to add my base because that's going to help me agitate the pigments and mix them more thoroughly. The base is the plastic primer, and as you know, that's very shiny, so I'm going to also add a bit of flattener right from the very beginning. Now we can get a hair dryer and a paper towel and do our first dab test. Well, it's looking a bit light. Let's see how it dries down. And it's still light. Not the kind of thing you want to have happen in the middle of a demonstration. Well, let's see what we can do. And logically here, we can add back in more of our 120 blue. But since we have adjusted the value, I am also seeing something that the camera doesn't pick up quite well here, but I see green in our target color. Since green is also very dark, I can ask myself, do I want to add the green now and see how it affects the value, or do I want to add the blue now and then add the green? So either way is good. Let's add the green this time though and just see what difference it makes. And we want our green to be very subtle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to muddy the green with a little bit of dark brown. We had in another video discussed how that red and green are complementary colors, and so then they can diminish each other. I imagine that there's a mud hole in the middle of our color wheel, and if the red team is stronger, they pull the green team into the mud. And the green of their uniforms will not be as intense. So we can lessen the intensity of green by adding red, or we can make a subtle change by adding just a bit of the mud, the dark brown. Let's do it. Just a few drops of the 175 green. And then the brown is the 140 dark brown. It's a very subtle pigment. Since both of these pigments are dark, we should expect that to also contribute a good deal to darkening our value. Our test color was also very shiny, which makes it difficult to perceive the true color. So I'm adding yet a bit more flattener for our next test. So that's looking much better already. What we are missing is the other component that we planned on adding anyway, and that was our blue pigment. With the inspection light, you can see some of that green quality I was looking at. And you can also see that our paint needs some of the blue, which will also be contributing a little bit darker value, and that's exactly what we need. Something that's fun for me to do as I'm dabbing these colors on our test piece is I build a ladder. So I can see my first try was too light. I can see the next one was darker, so I'm really closer in the ballpark there for value. I'm missing some of the blue, so now we'll put the third rung on the ladder and see how that works. It's good to do this because when you look back, you can see that every step that you've made was a calculated step, and you can see how the theory works. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to get everything ready to spray now, and of course that'll be the final test as well. These parts are cleaned, prepped, and a bit of adhesion promoter on them. My first coat, of course, needs to be a very light coat. Very thin coat, just to try to establish some adhesion. If we put a wet coat on at this point, it would tend to want to run maybe, or maybe to fisheye. And so that's why the first coat is just a very thin one. There'd be nothing wrong with wearing a glove on my left hand so I didn't look like one of the Blue Man group. All right, so we have a little bit of paint left over, and that's good because there are a couple of trim pieces still in the car, and we're going to go take care of that in a few days. And here are those interior pieces done to coordinate to the A-pillar, which is wrapped in vinyl. We have a second seat color to make up. That will paint this black dash cap and the lower dash as well. And that blue will be this darker insert color. And that took a lot less time than I expected. And now they're all put together. Before we end our discussion about vivid colors, the same thing applies to reds, where we can start with our most intense red pigment. Then we will make subtle adjustments just as we did with our vivid blue. We set up this appointment 2 months ago, and I told him do not do that to the console. And here's the way it came. I didn't offer anything or suggest anything in view of the fact that this apparently is the way he likes it. One more example of red is in this Rolls-Royce, which was a one-owner car, originally purchased by Milton Berle, and it comes complete with all the original paperwork, which makes this a very expensive model. But you can see all the various reds in here, from the original red to the dark red lacquered seat bottom, which we'll strip with acetone, to the replacement doors. The doors are all completely rebuilt out of vinyl. But there are a number of different reds in here, so we have to try to decide which one. And the principle that applies here is to involve the customer in the color match. So the customer pointed out which red he wanted to be matched. And from there, I tried to fudge a little bit, as I do with all older cars when there are a variety of colors because of fading and whatnot. Tried to find a color that's going to blend and bring everything else together. And so what I did here is sprayed one panel and asked the customer how was that, and so he gave approval on that one in-betweener color that was really actually very close to the color that he picked out to match. And that's a great lesson learned. On older cars, where there are all kinds of different faded varieties of a color, get the customer involved in the color matching. From that point, it'll be smooth sailing, and you know he's got to be happy with the end result. So thank you for watching. I hope you could find something there to take away that's going to help you in your business.